think the Affordable Care Act is invalid and should be struck down? What is your message to Americans?
Let me just tell you exactly what my message is. The Republican Party will soon be known as the party of health care. You watch.
President Trump said the Republican Party will be the party of health care. If that is true, God help middle-class Americans.
All right, to the battle over health care. Believe it or not, it's back in the headlines ahead of the 2020 presidential election. The Trump administration on Monday asked a federal court to fully repeal the Affordable Care Act. That would include protections for pre-existing conditions and the expansion of Medicaid. The move gives Democrats a chance to pursue an issue that damaged Republicans in last year's midterm elections. In 2018, Democrats flipped 40 House seats and smashed the Watergate record for the largest margin of victory in a midterm election for either party. Several top Republicans have blamed the losses on the issue of health care. NBC News asked Republican Senator Kevin Cramer yesterday if the 2018 election losses were the reason President Trump is focusing on health care. He laughed and said, quote, "That's a good way to put it." Senator Lindsey Graham said, quote, "We've done enough to go after Obamacare, but not enough to replace it." What do they have? According to Politico, the administration's move to invalidate Obamacare came despite the opposition of two key cabinet secretaries, Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar and Attorney General Bill Barr. Democrats seized on the administration's move yesterday, unveiling their own plans to bolster the Affordable Care Act. Michael Steele, is this a gift to the Democrats? I'm trying to understand the strategy here.
Yeah, I haven't figured out if it's a gift or a Trojan horse of some kind, that the president and Republicans have something inside this package that'll bite the Democrats. I don't see it. The Republicans I've talked to, they're scratching their head. They're going, you've got a great message, sort of using his term, exonerating the president on Mueller. Ride that horse for as far as you can. And the president's pivoted. He now wants to talk about health care, and here's the problem. Republicans don't. And they don't because they know their history on this subject is replete with failure. There is no plan to replace. So if the courts take the president up on his charge to completely eliminate Obamacare, then what? We revert back to the old system, which means pre-existing conditions go away, meaning people who have those pre-existing conditions no longer will have coverage. As Mike Barnicle pointed out in the first segment, those who currently have plans will see increased premiums because insurance companies who were at the center of this health care debacle in the first place will still run amok and set the market against consumers. So Republicans don't want to have this fight. They saw the cost paid in 2018. The cost will be exponential in 2020, layered on top of a presidential race. The Democrats will have the upper hand on this issue until the Republicans come to the table with a plan. And we saw how that went since, what, forever?
Well, I was
Exactly.
going to say, Heidi, what's so remarkable about health care, and the reason why Donald Trump should stay away from it, is because it is the one issue that, more than any other issue, has proven the intellectual bankruptcy of the Republican Party, how they are void of ideas. They started running against Obamacare in 2009. A decade later, they still have no plan. Paul Ryan, in all of his years up there running against Obamacare, never put together an effective plan to replace Obamacare. Here we are, a decade later. They still have no plan that they can submit to Americans and say, this is our idea on health care. We're behind it. We're going to pass it. You're going to like it. It does seem like a political disaster waiting to happen.
It was the one thing, or one of the major things, Joe, that separated Trump from his party, that gave him those populist creds, that he was proposing this health care plan that seemed too good to be true. It would cover everyone. It would be cheaper. It would be better. He made all of those promises on the campaign trail, and now the news flash today remains there is no replacement. And to your point, yes, this is opening a much broader discussion here, not just about what's happening with Obamacare, but what the broader agenda here is with, for instance, Social Security and Medicare. If you look in the House Republican budget, Joe, and this got very little coverage just because we are so focused on Russia, but the cuts that were proposed in that budget were almost dollar for dollar equal to the tax cuts that have gone to the top 1% over the past 20 years. So Democrats very much are looking forward to seizing on this issue to have a broader conversation with the American people. And I know from speaking with Democratic aides just yesterday that part of that is that they want to show how this is going to disproportionately hurt in some of these working class Trump districts, that they're going to be breaking that down for people. You know, look, this is how much more you pay for insulin. Look, this is the Trump districts that are going to be losing their health care or that face a disproportionate number of cuts under Social Security and Medicare. And they think that it's an opportunity to do something to unite the working class that they really believe has been divided by Trump based on cultural wars and fanning cultural flames.
So, Jonathan, once you get past the giddiness and the relief in the White House over Attorney General Barr's letter, and once you get past the clearly thirst for revenge and vengeance that clearly exists in the White House, is there any awareness, real awareness, of the depth of feeling in this country that people have in fear of losing health care or having adequate health care?
There are a lot of Republicans who have counseled the White House not to do this. This is not the push that you should be taking right now. And as much as they could very much overstep what they should do in terms of that thirst for vengeance for the Russia probe, they could overstep here too and overplay their hand. And some of this is, people I've talked to, is that the president has really personalized this issue, not because it necessarily out of concern of Americans' health care, but because it represents such a stinging political defeat for him, that he did on the 2016 campaign trail talk about repealing and replacing Obamacare night after night after night. The Republicans thought they had a plan in place until John McCain, in one of his last public acts, voted it down. And that is part of the reason why that has still fueled the president's animosity towards McCain, and that is why he is still thinking about this. We know in his meeting with senators yesterday, closed-door meeting on Capitol Hill, that we know that he was talking over and over about health care, and he has fumed privately that he's still upset that his effort to replace it was defeated by, he blames, John McCain.
But, Richard, he's got no plan, and he set himself up, and he set Republicans up for the political kill. I remember Bill Clinton, one of the most effective attacks he had on Republicans was that they're cutting Medicare to pay for tax cuts for the rich. Well, you look at the $845 billion that he's cut from Medicare in his proposed budget. You look at the hundreds of billions of dollars that he wants to cut from Medicaid and to totally eliminate block grants back to the state. It matches up pretty nicely with the tax cuts for all of his billionaire buddies down at Mar-a-Lago. And you know, Jeffrey Epstein is going to be very happy about the huge tax cuts that Donald Trump's given him. Bob Kraft going to be very excited. In fact, it was Trump who said to all those guys, I don't know if Epstein was there that night, but said to the guys around the table at Mar-a-Lago, I just made you guys a lot of money with my tax cut. So here we go again. Every Republican is going to have to defend the fact that Donald Trump and the Republicans slashed Medicare and Medicaid to pay for tax cuts for the rich.
I thought it was an extraordinary 48 hours, Joe. Bill Barr giveth and Bill Barr taketh away. He does his spin on the Mueller report, and then the Justice Department challenges the Affordable Care Act. And as you say, there really isn't anything resembling a substitute for it. But I also thought yesterday was interesting for another reason, because Mitch McConnell moved to get a vote on the Green New Deal. And if the Republicans are guilty of overreach on the Affordable Care Act and on health care, because they have no substitute, I think the Democrats are wildly vulnerable on the Green New Deal, because it's a kitchen sink of proposals, not just on energy and climate, but would essentially remake American society and the American economy. And when Donald Trump talks about it and talks about socialism and an enormous government role, he's onto something. And that's something that resonates. So each side is overreaching, one on healthcare, one on climate and energy policy and everything else. And the real question is, to me, which party has the discipline to stay focused on the era of the other party? And whether it's the Democrats keeping a focus on healthcare, the Republicans keeping a focus on the Green New Deal and all that would come with it, I think that will tell us a lot about the run-up to 2020.
So we'll get to that issue of the Green New Deal coming up, and still ahead, a stunning development in the case against Empire actor Jussie Smollett. Prosecutors have dropped all 16 charges against him, and officials in Chicago are not happy about it. Plus, there are a lot of big developments in foreign policy this morning. We'll go around the world with Richard Haass. We're back in a moment.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.